off. The fridges are all off. I've tried to maintain some of the fridges, but I can't cope. And most of the workers, I was having 35 workers. Most of them, they have retreated. I'm left now with 3 workers. So I'm out. I don't have nothing anymore. We are out. Look at how empty is the place.
Another young business owner, Bridget Masinga, is equally concerned.
Load shedding
is back, and it becomes very difficult for me as an emerging business owner. So I am not coping with load shedding, as I'm also expected to pay rent. Meanwhile, residents also say load shedding is worsening their living conditions.
When are you going to wash the clothes of a kid and iron them up? No time to iron. You can't iron with a geyser or whatever the case it may be. You'll have to use the electricity.
We are using electricity to pump water. We are using electricity in thing whereby our economy can also develop around Mafia. So it's better to come with a solution to avoid this thing of load shedding.
I'm asking our president to talk to our minister to fix this load shedding.
With load shedding already affected small and big businesses, as well as people's livelihoods in the past, the residents are urging authorities to find ways to curb the recurring problem before it causes more harm to the ailing economy. Tabiso Moss, SABC News, Mahikeng.
Update at noon, midday to 1 p.m.
Now, Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana says he doesn't believe that the postponement of the tabling of the national budget will have a major impact on the G20 finance ministers meeting taking place in South Africa. Now, the tabling of the Government of National Unity's first budget was postponed last week, this due to disagreement in Cabinet regarding the proposed budget. It was the first time in 30 years that a finance minister did not deliver the speech as expected. Corbin August has more.
The finance track meetings of the G20 are being held in Cape Town this week. Some say Cabinet's failure to agree on a budget could cast doubts on South Africa's ability to manage its finances. The unprecedented postponement of the tabling of the budget also raised concerns over the stability of the Government of National Unity. But Godongwana says he believes the G20 countries won't pay much attention to South Africa's budget issues as they all have their own challenges to deal with.
One of my colleagues told me he's going to land here on the 23rd and his country will be voting, probably his party is going to lose while he's here. If you say there's no Minister of Finance who doesn't have a problem on earth, I'm mistaken. My colleague, Christina from Canada, has just thrown the towel and resigned from Canada. So I remember I was sitting with Kwasi from UK who lasted 38 days. He was fired when I was sitting with him in Washington. So Minister of Finance is not a thankful job. So those people who are coming there, they've got, I can tell you, if you were to ask them, they'll tell you there are problems.
However, others say the postponement could hurt the country's image at this crucial time of hosting the G20 finance ministers and their central bank governors. Economist Davi Ruet.
Of course, the G20 is important. We still have some heavy hitters that's got their image intact, like, for example, Lesetja Kganyago. So he will be there to represent South Africa. But I've got a suspicion that the kind of respect that the Minister of Finance was expecting to get, that is not going to be there.
And that report, of course, by Corbin August. With that, it is 1 o'clock, and that's it for this Monday edition of Update at Noon. We'll be back again tomorrow, so be safe until then. Here's Dineo Motaung with your news at 1.
Thank you, Sakina. Top stories. Motsoaledi blames high private medical costs on lack of regulation and injured SA soldiers being evacuated from Eastern DRC. A very good afternoon. Health Minister Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi says the high medical costs in the private healthcare sector should be blamed on lack of regulation. Motsoaledi says there are plans to set up an interim board to regulate the supply chain in the sector. He says billions of rands are spent on administrators in the private healthcare sector rather than being spent on patients.
We believe we can't set up an independent supply chain regulator for healthcare because the Treasury has told us very clearly that they will never countenance the formation of a public entity because those that are there, they are actually de-establishing them.
Members of the Umkhonto weSizwe MK party are protesting outside the Pretoria Magistrates Court where a 41-year-old man is expected to appear in connection with the alleged assault of patrons at the Zanzu nightclub in Hatfield. This after a video depicting young men in their 20s being sexually violated at the club went viral over recent weeks. The man was arrested in Yeoville, Johannesburg on Friday. MK party spokesperson Abel Tau says they are at court to show support for the alleged victims.
We will obviously be calling as well for further investigations. We know that over the weekend there was a surfacing of yet another incident that involved the same culprits, and therefore we are of the view that these has been things that has been happening for the longest of time, and we really need to get down to the bottom of it because we believe that this is just the tip of an iceberg.
In other news, Eskom says its teams have made a great progress in restoring 8 out of the 10 units which tripped over the weekend. In the early hours of yesterday morning, the power utility announced the implementation of Stage 6 load shedding up from Stage 3, which was announced on Saturday. This was due to multiple unit trips at the Camden, Majuba and Medupi power stations. Load shedding has today been reduced to Stage 4 until further notice. Eskom spokesperson Daphne Mukwena.
Our teams have been working round the clock since Saturday. We have brought that 5 units at Majuba on. We're just ramping them up. And we also brought the 2 units from Camden. We're also ramping them up. And we're expecting the other 2 to be brought back from today and tomorrow. Once our fuel is sufficiently replenished, I think we will then call off this load shedding that we are experiencing at the present moment.
Students' organization SASCO has proposed that institutions of higher learning use low-cost housing to address the students' accommodation crisis. Students, especially those who are self-funded, are struggling to secure affordable accommodation. SASCO's Kagisho Sidikila says some students at the Tshwane University of Technology have resorted to squatting.
Right now, there are low-cost housings. You see those low-cost housings. Some few of them here in Tshwane, they are hijacked because of they give them to people who are employed and then they later not pay electricity and other stuff. I believe that if those low-cost housings can be given to students, and then students they will be able to pay at least 1,000 to maybe 1.2 as a rent, then a student can be able to have a place to stay. That will also be able to assist when it comes to accommodation. But then many students that are registering because of they do not have place to stay.
Lastly, the process of evacuating injured South African soldiers from the eastern DRC is underway. It is not clear how many of them will be brought back to the country. Last month, 14 SANDF members were killed in fighting between the M23 rebels and the Congolese military. Sophie Mukwena reports.
The process of bringing the injured members of the South African National Defence Force has been a difficult one. The M23 group is insisting that the only route that will be cleared for the evacuation will be through the Rwandan border. South Africa was not keen to go through Rwanda, fearing humiliation by the Rwandan forces. The United Nations will be responsible for this process, and it is not clear how many soldiers will leave Goma when evacuation starts.
Recapping the top story, the SAWA Health Minister, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi, says the high medical costs in the private health care sector should be blamed on lack of regulation. Motsoaledi says there are plans to set up an interim board to regulate the supply chain in the sector. For SFM News, I'm Dino Mutaung. The next update is at 1:30.
In the Arena is a docu-series that takes an in-depth look at the life and career of the legendary tennis player Serena Williams, offering a behind-the-scenes glimpse into her journey, both on and off the court. It explores her rise to tennis dominance, challenges, and personal experiences. Do not miss out on a great story of incredible impact. Catch In the Arena on Saturdays at 3 p.m. on SABC3. Alternatively, at 9 p.m. on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 on Saturdays and Thursdays. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game, the whispers in the morning as I look in your
This February, the month of love and self-care, at SAFM we're celebrating with you, spreading love to all. Let's embrace kindness, connection, and self-care. And as always, SAFM will continue leading the conversations that move us through love, wellness, and everything in between. This month, let's love ourselves, love each other, and keep the conversation going. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
'Cause I'm your lady and you are my
SAFM would like to thank everyone that submitted their entries for the playwriting competition. The announcement of the top 10 and winners of the competition will be announced on the 3rd of March 2025 on The Talking Point with Kathy Mutlatlana. Stay tuned to SAFM and find out who is the lucky winner. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
Always about you and what you're gonna do for me today. Always about you and what you're gonna give to me today. 'Cause you're not feeling good. All about you and what you're gonna give to me today. 'Cause you had a bad day. Well, so did I. So did I, baby. Well, so did I. So did I, baby. Tonight we're gonna talk about feelings. Tonight we're gonna talk about all the things that I've always wanted tonight. You're gonna be making up for all the times when I needed you and you were not there. You were not there, yeah. Oh. Can we talk about feeling? Can we talk about feeling? Can we talk about all the things that I've always wanted to say? Can we talk about feeling? Can we talk about feeling? All the things that I've always wanted to say. Why you don't get this, I'll never truly understand. Tried everything, but all you do is make me feel so bad for wanting you, for loving you, baby, for needing you. Whoa, baby, tonight we're gonna talk about feelings, baby, tonight. We're gonna talk about all the pain that I feel in my heart. Though I'm loving you still, I'm needing you still. Though I'm wanting you still. Oh, baby, baby. Feeling, things that I've always wanted to say. Can we talk about it? Give me some time, baby. All the things that I've always wanted. Yeah. what we're gonna do. Are you gonna listen? Are you gonna tell me what I need to do? Oh, baby, feel it. Yeah, we talk about it, baby. All the things that I've always baby, feel it. Can we talk about? I wanna talk about my feelings tonight, baby. Can we talk about? Give me some time, baby. Feelings, oh yeah, 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 yeah. Give me some time, baby.
It is Zonke Tikana coming through with her classic feelings. That is how we kick off the show on this beautiful Monday afternoon. I hope that you've had a restful weekend and you are geared up and raring for the week that lies ahead. We've got a lot of show coming your way from our end today. We're going to be in conversation on the back of those student protests that unfolded at the University of Stellenbosch over school funding. And we're going to be talking to multiple stakeholders invested in this conversation from the social and political angle, as well as those who are in education. The Ahmed Kathrada Foundation is going to be joining us, as well as the University of Pretoria's SRC members that are responsible for transformation and student success. And the question to you on the back of that conversation is, what are your thoughts on the issue of student protest? Are student protests justified if they disrupt education for others, or are they a necessary tool for driving change? Because there's been a lot of criticism, obviously, on the back of those visuals that came out of the University of Stellenbosch, depicting the disruption to classes and lessons, as well as some infrastructure there. And there's a school of thought that argues that, perhaps there's a better way. Perhaps there is a better way to approaching this conversation of a lack of equality within education. And then there are those that say, well, we've tried all the better ways. We've tried negotiating, we've tried talking, we've had the patience of coming to the table, and nothing has changed. And disruption seems to be the only way to bring attention to this prevailing issue. Our lines are open on 061-410-4107. That is our WhatsApp line. And of course, you can always give us a call on 086 000 2032, because as the tertiary academic year commences, we know, if history is anything to go by, that we are bound to see more student activity, more student protest activity across the various campuses in South Africa. And so we thought we'd have this conversation today. And that is how really we are going to kick off the show. We'll tell you what else is coming up as the show continues to unfold during the course of the day. But for now, 061-410-4107 is our WhatsApp line, and 086 000 2032 is the number that you can call us in. We'd love to hear your perspective on this as a parent, as well as somebody who might have someone in the family who's in tertiary at the moment. What are your thoughts when it comes to the issues of student protest? Do you think that they are justified? Especially when they are disruptive in nature, do you think they serve the purpose, or perhaps they just a very unnecessary approach to this conversation around tertiary and academic funding? Let's take a quick pause and then we'll be right back.
You are listening to The Full Circle.
All right, as we kick off the show, it is The Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga, on SAFM, leading the conversations that move the nation. So contentious conversations have erupted following the recent student protests at the University of Stellenbosch over school funding. And in the videos, we've seen a group of students that can be seen walking into a lecture that was currently underway with placards and songs. And the protests have sparked intense debate, as they often do in the country, with some labeling such actions as disruptive and unfair to other learners, while others defend it and say that it is a necessary disruption to prompt the privileged to acknowledge and join the cause of the disadvantaged in order to address these legacy issues that really plague South African campuses countrywide. And we're going to be in conversation now with 4 stakeholders in this. So we're joined by Leah Dontoba, who's a social and political commentator, as well as Muiketsi Kawela, who's an education and training officer of the Youth Activism Program at the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation. And they have very much a vested voice within education. And we also have Uzinhle Mankane. I hope that is correct. Zinhle, you will correct me. University of Pretoria's SRC member who's responsible for transformation and student success, and Damien Mukansi, who's an NEC member of the South African Students Congress. Thank you very much to everybody for joining in on the conversation. And perhaps let me start with pointing out the fact that we were also hoping to have the Universities South Africa on board with this conversation, because they are of the position and hold the position that student protests are counterproductive and misdirected. And I wonder, Lieto, maybe to start with you, if you share a similar sentiment, or perhaps you disagree with that sentiment by the Universities South Africa.
As a former disruptive student myself, I can't take up the position, even though I work in a university myself, right? Because a student issue only becomes a protest issue that is loud countrywide or even locally, right? After the students have exhausted each and every avenue they have. And sometimes are even constrained by the terms of office of an SRC, right? A year, you can't accomplish most of the things that the students are complaining about in a year: the lack of housing, mismanagement of funding. All of those things can't be all managed in a year. And once a new SRC comes in, it takes time for that SRC to pick up time. So in my opinion, yes, it's sort of two-pronged. The first one is, yes, a protest is a meaningful way in society for anyone who is disgruntled and marginalized to bring up awareness, right? I think the place where students are lacking is on the other end, to have a civil disobedience or like a civil society sort of approach, where now awareness has been raised, right? How do we structurally then challenge the thing we've just raised awareness of? In all protests, it's just the momentum of the protest. And once the momentum of the protest stops, the student issue then falls to the wayside. And then the problems still persist to the next generation of students, right? This problem is not new. In 2009, when I was a first-year student, it was still the same issues that we were facing as well. And I say the problem is there is no way that students, and the tenure which students have at universities, there's no way they can meaningfully solve all the problems that are created not by them, by people elsewhere. And so that becomes the issue.
Yeah. Damien, I'd like to jump you in on this as the NEC member of the South African Students Congress. Your sort of response and thoughts to what Lieto's just shared?
I think, first of all, I would like to firstly concur with him. And I think the posture is exactly the same. One thing that I think yourself and all the listeners must appreciate: there's no student leader that wants to engage in a protest. It's risky for them. One, you must appreciate that everyone goes to the university to get a degree. So there's a lot of victimization that can come to you individually because you are at the center of the strike, where you might end up being victimized so that you get out of the system. So it's a risk, but it's a risk that students themselves end up doing, mainly because in South Africa we have a big issue that when there is no lack of protest, things fall along the wayside, as you say. I mean, if we were to trace this, when we had the major strikes in the country, Fees Must Fall starting 2014, height of it, 2016. In 2025, you can trace it close to 10 years. And the struggle of the ban, by the way, the fees must fall was a peak. That was a peak demonstration, but that's not when the problem started. So 10 years later, we are still faced with the same problem. The same problem has not been fixed. So how then do you say strikes are not justified? Because since 10 years ago, we've never had a national strike at that very same level.
Yeah.
But the issues have not been resolved. So these past 10 years, are there not enough time that you have given to government, that you have given even to role players in the private sector? Because my view would say the private sector itself, because it's using the country, it's using its reserves, it's using its minerals, it has a responsibility to give back to the community. Has it not been enough time for them to try and resolve this issue that we are facing? So this idea that says, protests unjustified, it's wrong. We get interviews with you guys on the media because you are the guys that help us to be able to, I guess, ensure that people are accountable. You assist us in that matter. But you don't always come to us. It's only when there's a strike at UP. And by the way, if you look at the country, there's a strike at Stellenbosch. Even the media itself, it's not consistent. If you have a strike at UniZulu, it does not have the impact that VET has a strike. UCT. So these previously advantaged institutions, when they start being on the podium, we start getting coverage. But if you look at the other institutions, they are equally facing the same problem. So the main issue is that we must address is why must we wait for protest for our issues to be resolved? Maybe I'll stop there.
Sure. A lot has been said by way of the opening remarks. And of course, Zinhle Mangane, you are a role player in this as the University of Pretoria's SRC member, responsible for transformation and student access.
Yes, very much true. So I do echo with those words that there's no student leader that actually wants to engage in a protest. It happens when we have exhausted every avenue, and there's never a time where protest is actually the first solution. Protests come as a result of arrogance of institutions' management. The institutions give students no choice but to actually take it to the streets because they never listen when students are being peaceful. So student protests actually make a very good impact on progress. And this is proven in basically every university. Let's take Wits University as an example, where the SLC concluded on a hunger strike to address their issues because they did not receive any valuable situation. However, the students resorted to protesting, and this was the only way that administration decided to listen and actually extend the registration. So on a practical and material condition analysis, student protests are absolutely justified because it is not them that disrupt education for others. It is the arrogant management that keeps on showing students that they will only be listened to when they protest.
Yeah. What's the missing link there, Zinhle, between, if this has been the sort of historical action, the historical last resort of students, and 10 years and counting after, the biggest student movement with fees must fall. But there seems to be very little traction or very little willingness to engage student issues for proper, permanent, sustainable transformation. So what is the missing gap there? Because I think we can all agree, and especially if you guys say that, even student leaders themselves, no matter how robust and how active they are, it's a risk to you personally, and you don't want to start mobilizing at that level, but it's the last resort. What must happen in order for student voices to finally be heard and finally be cemented by institutions so that it's not a leadership regime change, but it is an institutional change?
For student voices to be heard, institutions must create platforms for engagement and should actively listen to the student concerns before protests become necessary. So this recurring pattern of students' protests being the only effective method of achieving change highlights the failure of management to respond to a peaceful dialogue.
Yeah. Mwiketsi, let's jump you in on that point. Education and Training Officer of the Youth Activism Program at the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation. And you guys have very much a vested interest in conversations around, access and equality to education in South Africa, specifically at a tertiary level.
Yes, Bridget. Good afternoon to yourself and the colleagues and the listeners. I think part of us, as part of our vested interest in this conversation, but also just in this work around education, particularly higher education, one of the questions we've been asking ourselves is really, a decade after, fees must fall, the struggle for justice in higher education continues. And I think just to also piggyback on the conversation that you've been having with the colleagues, particularly the colleague from, UP, and, what do those platforms for engagement look like? And certainly we've been trying to explore those, particularly with the young people who form part of our youth activism program as well, right? To say, how do you get to bring, the private sector together, the education, institutions together, NESFAs together as well, in one table to really just dialogue and deliberate, right? Because I do think this situation cannot continue as it's continuing, right? Now students have also, had to resort to hunger strikes, right? And I think news came in today that some of them, have been admitted to hospital, right? And certainly, one of my colleagues, I think it was Damien who spoke about, the reason why we protest so much is because we've come to understand that we live in a situation or in a country where if you do not protest, right, nothing will happen to your cause or issue, right? But what is the counterintuitive, what is the counter narrative do we need to create or provide to make sure that again, next year the situation or in the next coming 2 years or 3 years the situation doesn't continue? Because I do think we will lead to, yes, we've had follow-up fees must falls, your 2.0s, your 3.0s, and so on. I don't know which version is this one, but I certainly do think we will get to an inflection point, right? And I think it will need all stakeholders. The private sector cannot remove themselves from this conversation. Civil society can't remove themselves from this conversation. And I would like to perhaps maybe suggest that even perhaps maybe what does it look like to use this G20 process that we are in currently, or that we are chair, or that we are president of, that we can perhaps use these engagement groups perhaps as a way of dialoguing, of deliberating, and maybe as part of those platforms for engagement to come up with solutions to specifically accessing higher education. Bridget?
Yeah. As our conversation continues, our lines are open for you to also weigh in on this, because it is a conversation that affects every South African. It's not just a struggle, that is isolated to students. It's not just a struggle for justice and equitable quality education for students, but it affects each and every South African in one way or another in our households. And whether you come from a privileged household that has the means or not, from a human level, this is a conversation that you should be vested in. 061-410-4107 is our WhatsApp line. 086-000-2032 is the number that you can call us on in studio. We're going to take a quick pause for the headline news. Hey, here's a voice I haven't heard in a long time. Dineo Mutawung is coming through, and then we'll come back on the other side and continue our conversation.
Thank you, Bridget. A very good afternoon. Let's take a look at the headlines at 1:30. Health Minister Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi says the high medical costs in the private healthcare sector should be blamed on lack of regulation. Motsoaledi says there are plans to set up an interim board to regulate the supply chain in the sector. In other news, in the Northern Cape, Premier Zamani Sol says the provincial government will closely monitor the spending of the 2.5 billion rand allocated by National Treasury to the Solblaki municipality to deal with water challenges. And further afield, Hamas says talks with Israel through mediators about extending the Gaza ceasefire deal are conditional on Palestinian prisoners being freed as agreed. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
You are listening to The Full Circle.
All right, we are taking your voice notes on 061-410-4107. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this conversation, the impact of protest in addressing student challenges. We've heard just the opening remarks from our panel this afternoon, and we'd love to know, your perspective, whether you agree or don't agree on the effectiveness of student protests, or perhaps you feel there's a better way of doing things. Every opinion is valid in this conversation. 061-410-4107.
Hi Bridget, Kintabi Singh, a colleague of yours from somewhere. So Naki Mupulana, Pulana.
It seems as though we are playing the wrong voice notes at the moment. Okay, we're going to try and reboot again from our end. For now, let's go back to our guests while the techs work on that on the background. Okay, let me jump back to you, Lieto. Let's talk about this argument that is made by some that say perhaps protests of this nature, though meant to bring attention to important issues, are doing the exact opposite. There's a school of thought that says that not only are they disruptive to the academic year, but they also are disruptive to infrastructure and ultimately having the adverse desired effect for the very same students whose rights are being fought for.
And I'm glad that I'm part of the generation that is also actively preserving it.
There seems to be some... let's perhaps take a quick pause and then we'll come back on the other side. We'll let the technicians at the back just regroup, and then we'll come back on the other side and continue our conversation. But we would love to hear from you. And of course, all of our guests are still very much holding on the other side of the line.
SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365. Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za. You are listening to The Full Circle.
Good afternoon, madam, and your listeners. We are immune to protests today. However, a class action conducted by the students against the guilty government officials and associated institutions would be the best way to iron this problem out. Thank you. Charles Ladysmith.
Good afternoon, Bridget. I think for any student protest that is escalating around our country, we must blame our politicians. We remember the fees must fall. Zuma said there will be free education, and the other politicians, they follow. So our politician mustn't just drop the bomb and run away, because we know our history with apartheid. We know our history with the protest. Protest has become a disease that we can't live without it. Even in our society, we can see some protest everywhere. It's a protest because of our history. And our politicians must walk the talk and not just make promises that they can keep. They just drop the bomb and move away and are not found guilty on the courts of law. Brian Mabai, Protect Land. Thanks for the great show.
All right. It seems like we have all our systems back again. Apologies for that. Leeto, perhaps you'd like to respond to that. The first gentleman sharing the sentiment that, by and large, people are immune to protest. But I wonder if that's the general sentiment or that is the sentiment that comes from a particular position.
Yes, I think it comes from a particular position because those who are immune are those who are not touched by the issue, right? Of course, if I'm not touched by an issue somewhere, right, I will not respond to the way in which the protesters need me to respond. I will not respond with some kind of emergency and try to address the issue. I'll be indifferent to it. So those who are indifferent to the protests are those who are not directly affected. But as the students were trying to portray, for instance, during Fees Must Fall, was that, yes, you are not affected now. That was what was the students were telling the policemen to say, well, you are not affected now. You are arresting me, but I'm fighting for your child who's going to come to the same university and be victimized in the same way. Your child will also be disregarded as the missing middle by NSFAS, for instance, and you will not be getting assistance. That's what we are fighting for. And so, yes, even though you seem indifferent to the protest and the issue now, does not mean that it will never affect you, right? But I think, secondly, just to be positive and in the way in which we're engaging this problem, students have tried, for instance, I'm at the Central University of Technology. They've tried to sing without interrupting classes, right? Yeah. And the university literally treated them like lunatics. Everybody watched them singing alone, the poor students who couldn't get access and couldn't get help, singing alone on the grass, and everyone just went to class, and the lecturers and the management went home, and they were left there singing. And so the protests then were the ones that led to proper engagement. Even though the protest was not a protest action, I remember the students took a walk from our Welcome campus to the main campus in Bloemfontein in protest. And then the issue started to raise eyebrows nationally, but also institutionally. That means that there is an understanding of these issues. And then lastly, business people surrounding the university, for instance, anticipated the problem of NSFAS, engaged the SRC to say, we're going to house students for the first 3 months for free until you solve their problems. And then only we'll start evictions, but we'll also consult with you at the time. If business people can be cognizant of the problems of the system, why is it that universities are never proactive in challenging these problems? Like I told you, ever since 2009, to this day, the same problems persist. A student will come to me with a problem I had in 2009. The university somewhere, somehow, must also be held responsible for being lackluster in the way in which it engages stakeholders, whether it be students or governments.
Interesting perspective. Moeketsi, your thoughts?
That have been shared by the colleague around, if you're not immune, you certainly, are not touched by the subject. But, Bridget, listen, this issue of higher education access, particularly, the ways in which, since 2015, we've gone about it. I mean, some of us were involved in the 2015 movement. And, of course, I heard my brother here also talking about, in 2009, he was also involved. So, again, it's a recurring issue that we've seen post, 1994. And again, for me, I'm really going to advocate for us also as young people to use these processes that, are available to us, particularly the G20 process and some of these engagement groups like the Y20, to say, how can we, start advocating for better access, right? What does access look like, right? I mean, last week the NSFAS board was appointed, right? What is the criteria that we're going to hold that board accountable? Not only from them reporting to the higher portfolio committee and so on, but what do we need to do? What are the campaigns that we need to take on as well as young people to hold this board accountable? But also, I'm also thinking of what are the new models that we need to come up with. It's not lost on me that, in 2017, there was something called ISFAP that was launched, and it's still in existence in some of these universities. Why is it that, a model or a fund like ISFAP works, but NSFAS doesn't work, right? So these are some of the questions I think we also need to grapple with and ask. And certainly we all need to come together to the table to really resolve this issue of funding higher education, right? Whether what does a decolonized, or free access to education really look like? And I think we've had conversations at a higher level, right? People have theorized about these things and how it might look like, but I certainly do think we need to then come to the ground and come to people, to our students, and make them understand, what does it look like. Also, management also needs to come to the table of all these universities and make us understand if they don't have money, then they don't have money. Then we're able to say, okay, where do we find money to fund students and all those things. So I'm someone who really is going to advocate for having these platforms for engagement that are really honest and not only robust, but we're able to come up with solutions to them.
Yeah, and I think what you bring up here, Moiketsi, speaks to Lieto's initial remarks about how do then, after students having brought attention to issues, how do they then begin to have structural means of addressing the very same problems? How do they begin to have the solutions and present those at the tables? And I think we'll give the very same students the last bite on that one. Damien, perhaps you could hop on that point to say, well, what becomes the way forward? What becomes the sustainable solutions in order to ensure funded decolonialized education, not only for students of the present, but just ensuring that this becomes the adopted way forward into the future?
No, thank you. I'm going to try and be quick. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the issue that we have. The first one is institutional autonomy. As SASCO, we are already calling for the Higher Education Act to be amended to remove this thing of institutional autonomy. And I'm going to make an example. The Minister of Higher Education and Training was doing oversight visits at the University of KwaZulu-Natal last week on Thursday. She writes after the meeting that she has instructed the university to extend the registration by a week. And I think after a while, somebody then tells her, I don't think you have that power. They changed the statement to say, we have persuaded the university to extend the registration by a week. But today is Monday. Since she came for the oversight, the university has never even released a single communication that speaks to registration being extended.
Yeah.
So you can really tell that the Minister of Higher Education herself has no power in institutions of higher learning, more especially universities. So you can't have education not being a wing of government, where government itself has got no control on education. It's a flaw, and that flaw must be fixed. Last week, we were having an issue where we were speaking about the potential for VAT to be increased in this country. It was making big issues because when you talk VAT, you touch the ordinary lives of people.
Yeah.
But there's a statement that we have been saying. We are a country. When you invest in the country, it's a contract. Let's put it there, that those who are investing in the country, that have business in the country, they have to be taxes for things like money that will be allocated towards education. When we say tax the rich, people tend to be worried. But we are not talking about ordinary South Africans like yourself. We're not talking about a CA that works for a company. We are saying it's wrong for 0%, 0.1% of the population to get 90% of the reserves of this country. So there must be a bracket that says people who are making excessive money in this country, and we are not talking about some millionaire.
Yeah.
Remove yourself. There must be a tax in relation to education, tax the rich. Those are the things that we are talking about. Number 3, government funds universities and that access money, for instance, for infrastructure. The universities retain that money in their reserves. Those reserves have existed. Some of these apartheid institutions or the institutions that were there in the days of apartheid, the reserves have been there since. If those monies were to be used for specifically the issue of writing off student debt, we would not have these issues. But those monies are not disclosed. And as SASCO, we are saying those are public funds because they come from government. It's government that funds institutions. Therefore, we have the right to know how much reserves UP have. And we are so sure that with those reserves, we would be able to deal with the issues that we are having. So We need to have these uncomfortable debates that we are having. Or else, I'm telling you, it's 10 years since the days of Fees Must Fall. 10 years from now, we'll be speaking about the same issue.
Yeah.
You know, and
Damien,
I think
we have to wrap it there, unfortunately. I think this is a conversation that will consistently require, getting around the table with all the various stakeholders to hold court and really ensure that the grievances of students like yourself, students like Zinhle, continue to be heard, and that there are real interventions that are put in place. And unfortunately today, we've run completely out of time, but we appreciate all of y'all for being a part of this discourse and answering our call and allowing us the time. We're going to take a quick pause now, and then we're going to come back on the other side, and we're going to catch up with the CEO and Creative Director at Color Space, Cyril Zuma, and look at how Color Space is partnering up with NGOs to drive donations through stock photography and youth empowerment.
With Ford's Blue Sky offers, get a new Ranger XL from just $5,899 per month, including our optional service plan, only when financed through Ford Credit. 10% deposit, primeless 4.75%, 40% residual. Visit your trusted Ford dealer today for Blue Sky offers, where our Ford Family Guarantee comes standard. Limited time offer while stocks last. Ford Credit is a registered credit provider and an authorized financial services provider. T&Cs apply.
SAFM would like to thank everyone that submitted their entries for the playwriting competition. The announcement of the top 10 and winners of the competition will be announced on the 3rd of March 2025 on The Talking Point with Kathy Mutlatlana. Stay tuned to SAFM and find out who is the lucky winner. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. You are listening to The Full Circle.
All right, we are shifting gears just a little bit, and we're catching up with the CEO and Creative Director of Color Space. And this is somebody, by the way, by way of disclaimer, that I know on a personal and professional level, Cyril Zuma, who is a budding photography, not even budding, a professional photography entrepreneur. And he has founded Color Space, which is the creative director. And Color Space is really an innovative image solutions agency. But I'm going to let you tell us exactly what that entails. How are you doing this afternoon, Cyril Zuma?
I'm good, and how are you? Can I call you Sis Bridget now?
You can. Everybody does. It's always a variation.
Yeah, I love that, and it's been a long time since I've seen you, but thank you for having me on the show. Good afternoon to your listeners, and good afternoon to you. How are you doing?
I'm great, thank you. Only but a pleasure. So give us some context around Color Space, because this is your brainchild. It is your baby, and it's an innovative image solutions agency. But what does that entail?
So just a quick background on how this actually came about and why the need was so urgent for me. So in around about 2017, 2018, I was working at a creative agency, and I was in charge of a few brands. And one of the things I was in charge of was social media, so it included sourcing images from different places. And I would go into Google and I would probably type happy family, and what I would find was pictures of white people, and unfortunately the brands that I was representing were actually targeting black people. So I found there was actually quite a problem that I wouldn't find relatable South African images while working at the agency. So to cut a long story short, I saw a gap and I quit in the industry. I quit working there, and then I started Color Space, which is basically a stock photo platform where anyone and everybody can sign up on the platform. It's actually free. Smartphone photographers, digital photographers, whatever type of photographer you are, you can sign up onto the platform. As I said, it is free. And then corporate buyers and anybody can also come onto the platform and actually buy your image and use it for whatever purpose. So if you look at billboards, if you look at magazines, there's always images, even on TV. There's even, stock videos. But yeah, we deal in stock photography of just black people only.
Yeah.
And it's truly just to represent, the community and the life that I live. I found that I wasn't being represented properly in the media that I was consuming.
Now, okay, let's rewind for folks who don't understand when we talk stock images, what one is talking about, because then it will better help us understand how the partnership with the non-governmental organizations come into play.
For sure. So stock photography in general, just an easy way to put it, is a library of images, various images that you could go onto. So stock images, you could even take a stock image right now. You could step out of your window, step out of your house. You could, even in your house, you could take a picture of your plant that looks really, really nice and you feel like somebody could actually buy it. And again, if you look at the media that's around you, if you scroll on your phone or the TV that you're watching, it actually is stock images. So it's just images that are collected by people. I mean, if I had to ask you and the listeners how many photos you have on your phone, most people would probably say like 12,000 or something like that. And those are stock photos themselves.
I see. Okay. And then you've now partnered with 10 non-governmental, or the intention is to partner with 10 non-governmental organizations to help them build their brands. But help us understand how that partnership works, and maybe what was the gap that you saw there, and you thought that your organization, of course, Color Space, could fill that for NGOs.
For sure. So on a couple of occasions, I would go to the mall and wherever I was going, and I would find NGOs. Maybe set up with a stand or somebody that works at an NGO, and they approach you and they say, please, could you donate to us? Here are bank details. It's almost like a subscription kind of thing. And I felt it was a bit intrusive on my end, for somebody to ask my bank details right there and there, to not even knowing much about who I'm donating to and where the money is going, things like that. So an idea sparked between myself and my business partner to help these NGOs get donations in a different way, rather than asking in a cold calling sort of way. And so with us partnering with these NGOs, what we are helping them do is build a stock library that will live on Color Space, and then all the corporates and donors can come onto the website, purchase the photos, and actually utilize them for whatever they do. So what we found is that a lot of these corporates, a lot of the donors that donate to these NGOs are actually corporates, and they themselves buy images of tens and thousands, of hundreds of thousands every month. But unfortunately, like I said, we do have a problem in South Africa of misrepresentation, and so therefore these NGOs, will be able to have stock photos on the platform, and their donors and anybody can come onto the platform and buy images, and that's a way of donating to them. And we've decided that we're going to give a large portion of the of the buyings to these NGOs as a support to them.
I see. Wonderful stuff. And of course, the intention is to get 10 NGOs on board with this. And so far, though, you've partnered up with just a few, in these initial stages.
For sure, yeah. So we've only partnered up so far with 5 NGOs, and we are looking for more NGOs. Of course, there's a process that we go through, but we're pretty much excited with the NGOs that we've partnered up with, and we are definitely happy to start with them and excited to start with them. We've started registering them on the website. So if you as a donor, you could literally come onto the website and buy from there. And just a quick example, I don't know if you remember the Lance Armstrong yellow bands.
Remember.
Yeah, so that was another way of donating, and it became such a global phenomenon. What we are trying to do here is give the donors something tangible that they can go home with, that they can utilize afterwards. And sometimes, it's better than actually just donating money itself. Yes, you do get the gratification of giving, but you as a user get nothing. And sometimes, donors can get tired of donating if they're not seeing anything tangible to themselves. So with photos, you could utilize them literally for anything, whether it's photos of kids, older people, people gardening, people playing, things like that.
Well, listen, it sounds like an incredible initiative, and hopefully it will help the NGOs, just to better position themselves and to be able to generate much needed sustainable income and raise awareness for their vital causes. The very best to you, and I think we'll have a different conversation at a different time around the power of photography, especially perhaps social photography. That was Cyril Zuma, CEO and Creative Director at Color Space, and he's partnered up with the NGOs to help drive donations through stock photography and youth empowerment. We're going to take a quick pause, and then we come back. We quickly catch up with Christopher Blichnote just before we head into the news.
SAFM supports a litter-free South Africa. Play your part in keeping our surroundings and environment clean. SAFM, leading the conversation. You are listening to The Full Circle.
Okay, so we're going to catch up with Christopher Blichnout now, who is part of Tim Nazura, Christopher, who are the winning team. And we're talking the TCS Sustainathon South Africa 2024. And winners were proposing energy-efficient vaccine storage solutions for rural South Africa. How are you doing this afternoon, Christopher?
I'm doing all right, and yourself?
I'm great. Thank you very much. Okay, give us a quick background and some context as to the TCS Sustainathon South Africa 2024 competition.
So it's a competition held by Tata Consulting Services. That's what the TCS stands for. And basically, it's their way to try and foster sustainable innovations and projects and ideas from the youth. So it was about 40 universities, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Well, over 180 applicants from 40 universities. And they present their ideas to Tata Consulting. And, at least for us that won, I know that they're taking it further with us. They've offered us an opportunity to intern with them, or I believe either intern or get into the final interview. So still waiting for contact from that section.
Okay.
But they've also spoken about an awesome space to develop our ideas and work hand in hand to help produce our idea personally.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, tell us about your winning creation, because you created a portable energy-efficient vaccine storage system for rural Africa. The inspiration behind this creation, Vitals Vault.
So I think one of the biggest benefits of our team was that we all came from high school together, and then we went our separate ways. One decided to study medicine at Wits, named Talha, and Ethan, my other member, went to study electrical engineering at Nelson Mandela University. And when we got together to try and decide to figure out an idea for this competition, Talha saw how a lot of vaccines and medical samples would be wasted purely because of cold chain management failures. So, somewhere, whether it be on the truck that is stuck in traffic, suddenly the temperature would collapse in some way, whether it be a box full of ice that melted or, in a fridge where load shedding struck. And especially with vaccines, because that's what we targeted, some vaccines are extremely delicate. So if they go above 8 degrees Celsius, they die. If they go below -1 degree Celsius, they die. And then other vaccines are sitting here at -50 degrees Celsius, but if they go anywhere higher than -45 degrees Celsius, they die. And because of that, we saw the issue here, where not only is it so much medical wastage being generated, I think we found a shocking statistic where, with regards to COVID vaccines, especially in KZN, which is primarily, it has rural districts, and this was also during the height of load shedding, but for every 2 million rand that was put into vaccinations, about 1 million of that would be lost to cold chain management failures. The other issue with taking energy is that because of these vaccines having very specific requirements, you have this massive fridge that you have to cool down to -50. Meanwhile, you only have 20, 25 vaccine samples present in that fridge. And then you have another fridge, which you've cooled completely down to, say, 2 degrees Celsius, and you only have 4 vaccines present in that fridge. And it's just a lot of energy wastage. So as such, what we ended up doing was we decided to make a modular design, so that each one could be connected together. However, you would only have to cool each specific shelf to its correct temperature.
I see. I mean, listen, talk about coming up with a creative solution to a persistent problem. We fast run out of time, but I just want to sneak in one little question. Talk to me quickly about the biggest challenges that you face when developing this.
I think the biggest challenge was constantly finding roadblocks. where someone would say, oh, but have you thought about this? Have you thought about all the medical legislature that has to go here? Have you thought about your cooling solution being inefficient in this certain way? And I think that it's hard to be told over and over that, your solution isn't working. However, I think it's necessary because, you develop your solution more and more by taking in this criticism.
Absolutely. Christopher Blichnote, congratulations to you and Tim Nazura, the winning team for the TCS Sustainathon South Africa 2024, and the walk away with that 35,000 rand, but also more importantly, with the opportunity for them to be incubated by Tata Consultancy Services and ultimately develop and scale up their innovation, which is the Vitals Vault, an energy efficient vaccine storage solution for rural South Africa. Great minds there from Christopher and his colleagues. And Christopher is currently studying at a Bachelor's of Business Science, specializing in computer science at UCT. So it's just gone 1 o'clock. It's time for us to catch up with the news. And remember that essential cover from Outsurance pays out claims in cash, allowing you to choose your own panel beater. Simply SMS CAR to 43187 now.
Top stories. Motsoaledi calls for end to fee-for-service healthcare and Hamas holds talks with Israel. Good afternoon with the news. I'm Dino Mutaung. Health Minister Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi says the fee-for-service method of paying for healthcare must be eradicated. Motsoaledi says South Africa, along with the US, are the only two countries that still pay cash for healthcare services in the world. He says other ways of accessing healthcare must be explored. Motsoaledi was speaking at a media briefing in Johannesburg following the Competition Commission's healthcare market inquiry.
The World Organization said you are the same. You are outlying me because you are doing what other countries are not doing, meaning relying mostly on cash and private medical aid to pay for health. And they said it's untenable and it's unsustainable. That's why some of us are so intent on NHI. Now, the market inquiry is making the same finding, that paying cash for health is the main driver of volume and cost inflation, and do away with it as much as you can and look for other alternative reimbursement mechanisms.
We move to the Northern Cape now, where Premier Zamani Saul says the provincial government will closely monitor the spending of the 2.5 billion rand allocated by National Treasury to the Salt Lake municipality to deal with water challenges. Saul was speaking at the official launch of the Budget Facility for Infrastructure project at Riverton near Kimberley this morning. The project seeks to tackle the ongoing water crisis that has led to water cards, leaks and ailing infrastructure. The funds will be released in trenches for the next 7 years. Saul elaborates.
We've got a direct interest in this project because this is the capital town of the province. People, when they come here, they must actually experience the best form of service delivery with regard to water, electricity, best roads. So we've got a direct interest. We are going to ensure that we monitor the project, implementation of the project very closely.
And in other news, residents of Bothaville in the Nala municipality have taken to the streets calling for the resignation of the mayor Nozililo Mashia and municipal manager Luhlenya Scorch. The two are being accused of corruption and maladministration. Schooling has also been disrupted and shops are closed. The municipality owes Eskom 936 million rand. The biggest and its first accredited private accommodation in Mahikeng Tolo residence has been accused of charging large cancellation fees. Some students at the Northwest University's Mahikeng campus say they face challenges when attempting to cancel their lease agreements. In a written response, the establishment has stated that its cancellation fee is set at 10% by the university. Special Project Director at the university, Herman Stein, has refuted the establishment's response.
We are not aware of the specific 12,000 or 13,000 rand. What we are aware of is if a student has signed a lease agreement and it is a valid lease agreement with a landlord where his facility was accredited, and the student simply wants to cancel, then your Consumer Protection Act kicks in, and it says the student must pay a reasonable penalty fee for climbing out of the contract. That reasonable fee we have established on all our campuses as 1 month of rent. Of course, a NSFAS student will not have that money. If the landlord is not following their obligations for any reason, then the student is allowed to climb out of that lease agreement without any penalty.
Further afield, Hamas says talks with Israel through mediators about extending the Gaza ceasefire deal are conditional on Palestinian prisoners being freed as agreed. The release of more than 600 Palestinians due last Saturday was delayed by Israel. The BBC's Sulandinel reports.
There's growing concern about the future of the Gaza ceasefire, with the current temporary 6-week truce set to expire on Saturday. A senior Hamas official, Bassam Naim, said Israel's postponement of the release of Palestinian prisoners exposed the entire agreement to grave danger and called on mediators, especially the US, to pressure Israel. Last week, Hamas returned 6 living hostages and the bodies of 4 others. The White House has backed Israel's decision to delay the planned prisoner release, but President Trump's Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, has said he will push for an extension of the Gaza ceasefire when he travels to the region this week.
Recapping the top story, the SAWA Health Minister, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi, says the fee-for-service method of paying for health care must be eradicated. For SFM News, I'm Dino Daung, headlines at 2:30.
And that's the news for this hour. Theft, accident and 1 million rand liability cover, all covered by OUTsurance Essential. And you can get yourself a quote today by simply SMSing car to 43187. 48-year-old Zandile loves OUTsurance Essential because it's low-cost insurance that's designed for older cars. For her 2008 Toyota Yaris T3, she only pays 391 rand a month with OUTsurance Essential, where you get up to 1 million rand liability cover. And that means if you cause an accident, the other car could be covered for up to 1 million rand. Add even more value with the motor warranty, which covers you for mechanical and electrical breakdowns. Get saving with OUTsurance Essential for unfinanced cars that are older than 5 years and valued at less than 130,000 rand. All you have to do is SMS car to 43187. That's car to 43187 today. OUTsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP, and T's and C's do apply.
In business, a rand saved is a rand earned. And almost 100,000 businesses trust OUTsurance.
We're in the private security industry, and by switching to OUTsurance, we save 785 rand a month. It's an extra tank of fuel, it's extra reward money that we pay our officers. When it comes to insurance, OUTsurance is our security company.
For your business insurance, contact OUTsurance to see how much your business could save. SMS quote to 43328 for immediate cover, or visit outsurance.co.za today. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
It's 2025, aka 2020 Thrive. And from January to December, we're managing our expenses better, even in the month of love. Whatever personal expenses or aspirations you have, make them happen now with a Nedbank personal loan of up to 400,000 rand and enjoy our best available interest rate.
Search Nedbank personal loans and show your goals some love. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Ever since Uspilion won 5,000 rand, 5 tower on Wheel of Fortune, he only wears white push-in sandals. White, Baba. And he owns 10 identical pairs. Before he did not even know the Queen's language. Now, Kalabo, wow. Chance, let's watch Wheel of Fortune weekdays, Monday to Friday at 7:30 on S3 and see how one spin changed Spillion's life and how it can change ours as well in just one day.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
Baby, was I
sakho mara wayiwa Every time I look at you, your eyes, your smile, your touch is killing me softly, yeah, yeah, yeah. Iyajabula, anginawe. Say to you, everything I want and more. You everything I need and more. Baby, you mean the world to me. Baby, you mean everything to me.
I swear, like my technical producers, like I'm starting to think you guys do it on purpose. I'm starting to think that, you know, they do it on purpose. They probably had a group meeting and they were like, because this one likes to talk off air, let's just switch on the mic in the middle of her saying something. Anyway, that was Vusinova coming through with Nguwe. Always a pleasure when we listen to Vusinova. Always a pleasure. By the way, do you follow us on social media and all of our social media platforms under the handle at SAFM? That's where you can find us. And we still, yes, very much do live stream the shows. So you can catch all of your favorite shows live streamed live to you via safm.co.za, as well as our Twitter handle, well, formerly known as Twitter, now X. That's where you can go and stream the shows live. Right now, we're going to be having a conversation around business development, and we're looking at scaling a small business using social media platforms like TikTok as a blueprint for growth. Now, according to Reuters Institute's Digital News Report 2024, 90% of South Africans access their news content online, including social media, compared to just 30% that do so via print. And this signals a shift that business owners need to consider if they hope to meet their customers where their customers are at. And we've got joining us now Jared Fain, who is an entrepreneur and founder of, is it Cloud House?
Cloud House. That's
Cloud
correct,
House. Yeah. Okay, fabulous. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
No, it's only a pleasure. Okay, let's get some background firstly. As the founder of Cloud House, give us some context as to what is Cloud House.
Yeah, so Cloud House is a furniture company that specializes in niche furniture design, and we utilize platforms like TikTok predominantly over the last 3 to 4 months to meet our clients where they're at. And over that time, I've also got into helping other SMEs utilize the platform to tell their founder stories and yeah, like you said, meet customers where they're at.
Yeah, and very interesting sort of, I think, well, I don't know, as an entrepreneur, you obviously better well placed to tell us, but I would think it's an interesting position for a lot of SMEs to find themselves in, sort of with the magnifying on social media and platforms like TikTok and Instagram, depending on what is your product and who is your market. I get the sense that it's created accessibility, whereas before, you were really competing with big players in the game, and there was a possibility that you couldn't meet them toe to toe from a budgeting and branding perspective. But now suddenly you have access to millions of customers at just opening up of an app.
That's 100% right. There's been quite a digital shift over the past 2 months, and it's all about where people's attention is at. And, in the next, there's always going to be trends. And right now we're in an age where TikTok allows you to access millions of your clients. And what I found works quite well in this current space is content creation and getting your story out there, and not selling a product, but selling a story and building a community around the story of your brand and what you're currently doing.
How does one go about sort of doing that? You say you've used it for your business, Cloud House, and you've seen some great results with it. How do you go about telling that story? Telling that founder story, connecting with your client in a way that is impactful enough for them to actually, click through or take the necessary action to engage your brand and your product?
Yeah, it's all about authenticity is the way that I see it, and that could mean many different things to many different people. But what I found to be something that really does connect with the audience is taking your audience behind the scenes and on a day-to-day basis with you, and share the stories behind the product and the service, and show them your real day-to-day life and what it looks like. And in my case, what it looks like to design a couch and what it looks like to manufacture the pieces that we make, and show what it looks like to go through that design process that takes you from beginning to end. And that sort of validates the product, and it gives you an opportunity to share what the product means to you as the founder and to you as your company and to the clients that you have. And a lot of the time that really connects with an audience. It all goes back to storytelling. That was how we transferred information 2,000 years ago. I believe it's how we'll transfer information 2,000 years from now. So it's all about story and engaging audiences with the story behind your product.
Yeah. And ultimately, what led yourself to think, well, you know what, let's go play in this space. Let's go join TikTok with a very focused and deliberate mission about the business.
Yeah, TikTok is an interesting platform because it opens up opportunities to anyone who has creative ideas and anyone who is wanting to sort of change the way that things are done. So the way that I look at it is that it's a platform where, you're pretty much able to, it enables a lot of different types of creators to put their product out there and to meet the clients where they're at. So it's just about utilizing what we have that's nearest to us. And a lot of the time, content creation, everyone's got a phone,
Yeah.
So there's really no excuses. We can all get into the space. There's a lot of opportunity waiting for anyone with ideas.
Yeah, I mean, internally I chuckle when you say everyone's got a phone and there's no excuses, right? Because I think to some degree, no matter what business you're in this day and age, social media is touching you. And in some sectors, it plays a more significant role. But not everybody is responsive to it, right? So I look at myself, for instance, as a broadcaster, as a peripheral creative in different spaces. It's still something that I do very reluctantly and very sluggishly, even though I know the benefits of it, even though I've seen the sort of the monetary injection that comes from it when you do it correctly. And there's a lot of SMMEs who share similar sentiments, who say, okay, yeah, I see how it's working for Cloud House, and I could even be a little bit envious because I can actually see that they obviously have traction, engagement, more followers, which ultimately might be beneficial for the business if I'm from the outside looking in and just assessing. But I either don't know where to start, how to start, or how to maintain it, or what story I should be telling as an SMME to make this tool and this vehicle work for me.
No, 100%. And I can imagine there's a lot of people who might be in those same shoes who aren't entirely sure where to start. You know, the way that I see it is that every single person has like such an interesting story to tell, and there's a niche for every single type of business that's out there, or personality or life experience. And there are people who want to know about what you have to say, and they want to know about what the life of a certain person looks like. And the moment that you start putting out content and you master this sort of art of storytelling, you will find an audience of like the most random thing. And I mean, for example, I might bump into a video that talks about a niche type of sushi, and I'm going to be so happy that I came across that video and I learned an extra thing that I didn't expect to learn. And I think that's the beauty of TikTok, because there is a certain type of person, but a lot of the people don't search that come into my content. They don't search for furniture, but they find that they watch the first 3 seconds of the video and they're interested in the first 3 seconds that show this couch. That's quite interesting. And then I start to talk about it, and then they'll watch from beginning to maybe 70% or beginning to the end of the video. And it's because they didn't expect to see it, but they're glad that they watched it, and they'll let you know. They'll send a comment underneath your video. They'll engage with the other comments. I mean, it's not like these are, purists like myself. Yeah. They're everyday people, but there's something to say about that. There's a conversation that does start, and I think that can go for almost any industry.
Speaking of that engagement data, when you talk about, someone would just randomly come across your videos, and within the first few seconds, they've been gripped enough to at least watch 70-80% of the content and ultimately engage with your page. And engagement means a staying captured audience, right, on social media. How have you managed to sort of maximize on that, or identify what trends? Let's start there maybe. How have you managed to identify what trends work for your content in order to grab the attention and then keep the attention? And then ultimately, how do you then manage to translate that into engagement and click-throughs for the purposes of sales?
Yeah, no, 100%. So there is a direct spike between the TikTok videos that we post as a company and the website views that we also that we receive. There's a direct correlation between the two. Yeah. And I'm quite I'm personally very obsessed with data, and I love diving into data points. So I'm glad that you brought this up. So there's something that's called a hook, and that's what you implement in the first 3-5 seconds of your video. Yeah. And what I'm going to usually do in my videos is I'll state. No one in South Africa was designing the furniture that me and all my friends wanted. So I decided to design and make it myself instead. And those first few words immediately tell the viewer, this is what this video is going to be about. You probably connect with the fact that people aren't selling the furniture that you want. So I want to see what this guy has to say about that. And I want to see how his experience went. So what I would say is, find that first few hooks. Find that hook that can really, tell people what you're about and give them a reason to want to keep watching. That's how I would go about it. And there's something called retention editing that I would encourage everyone listening to who is interested in the space to go and research. There's a certain type of editing that you implement, and a certain type of storytelling that a lot of creators use to keep audiences hooked from beginning to end. And it's very different to selling. You're not selling in these videos. You're bringing them into your world. You're allowing them to see how your day-to-day life looks like. And as a result, they like, trust, and support you, and they want to keep on engaging because it's not about selling a product. It's about inspiring people to, go after their dreams. And as a byproduct, people want to buy from you.
And I think that's maybe where a lot of folks, the sort of the line of distinction between folks who really have tapped into social media and used it to their advantage and folks who are really just kind of there, right? Because you have a very deliberate focus in mining your audience data, in understanding your audience patterns, and understanding what your audience is responsive to, and so you are able to create accordingly and produce accordingly and ultimately engage for the benefit of your business. And I think that speaks a lot as well, maybe to just how one should be functioning as a business outside of even social media, because I would think that those tools are the basic tools of building a brand and marketing it, and now you just transpose them to social media and sort of rework them in a way that works for algorithms.
That's exactly it. Like I said earlier, storytelling is how we transfer information 2,000 years ago. It's how we're going to transfer information in 2,000 more years. So, fundamentally, these are human experiences, and we're adjusting them to wonderful platforms like TikTok that just grant us the opportunity to take these stories that we used to tell around a fire. But nowadays, the algorithm will find your ideal audience, and it's honestly, it's a beautiful thing, and it's helped me, and it's helped the clients that I also work with to grow their businesses and get their story out there.
How are you by way of sort of responding also to the comments? Are you a big listener to the comments by way of what people might desire or want from the products that you produce, and ultimately respond to that?
Yeah, so at the end of the day, the way that Cloud House is structured through the channel of TikTok is a community-based company. And that's where a lot of our clients come from. So they see me working with other clients and creating these unique furniture pieces that we just simply can't find anywhere else. And they say to themselves, I also want to get in on this action. I also want to create something. And when the new clients come in and I consult with them, we build our own relationship off of the platform, and I document this journey that we go on, and then I put it back into TikTok, and then more people see it. And I've sort of built a community around that process. So listening to comments, engaging with comments, it's actually imperative. It's really, really crucial for me.
Yeah.
So it's all community-based at the end of the day.
Does that also speak to building relationships? Because you say that's been part of your key lessons from this journey.
100%. A lot of people who start off as one-time viewers from a video have become clients and have actually become close friends of mine as time goes on. So yeah, it's played a huge role, 100%.
Wonderful. Just as a parting shot for a budding entrepreneur or a small to medium scale business that's venturing into social media, or one that's been in social media but hasn't reaped the benefits of the platform, what nugget would you give them that, you say, if you do this and you are consistent in doing just this one thing, you should at least see a result of whatever nature?
Yeah, 100%. So I'm going to do a shameless plug and say that I do offer this service. So reach out to me at Jarrison, and I can personally help you with that. But for the people who are wanting to do it on their own, I would definitely just say document everything that you do. Have videos on your phone of the process of you in your day-to-day life. Maybe get a videographer who's going to shoot you while you're doing your thing, and make sure that you are using these videos and editing them into little bites that future prospective clients can always come back to. Get yourself a nice mic, a tripod, and your iPhone. You don't need expensive equipment. It's not an expensive game to get into. Just document everything, and maybe get an editor if you are quite busy, and just ensure that there's always content being made and always content going out. People aren't as interested in your product on TikTok as you may think, but people love the story behind the product, and as a byproduct, they're going to buy your product because of the story, and give people a reason to care about what you're doing.
Fabulous stuff. Good advice right there from a young entrepreneur and founder of Cloud House, Jared Finn, joining us for this conversation. Hopefully, you'll get to scale up your small business in the coming year using the power of social media platforms. It's just gone 1:30. I mean, rather 2:30. My apologies. Jeez, you probably thought, what? 2:30. Daneo standing by with the headlines.
Thank you very much, Bridget. A very good afternoon. Let's take a look at headlines at 2:30. Health Minister Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi says the fee-for-service method of paying for healthcare must be eradicated. In other news, an outreach campaign to promote safer campuses that are free from sexual harassment and gender-based violence incidents has been launched, and the leaders of China and Russia have spoken by phone. Xi Jinping has told Vladimir Putin that China was pleased to see Russia and others have made positive steps to resolve the conflict in Ukraine. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
You are listening to The Full Circle. This program is brought to you by SABC Education, enriching minds, enriching lives.
Good day, everyone. My name is Koirazi. My surname is Mayana. Today I'm going to talk about if I ask for permission before I do anything. Yes, I actually do ask for permission. Asking for permission builds safety by showing respect. Some consequences of not asking for permission are that you might get in big trouble with your parents, which is bad. The reason I think it's important when kids ask their parents for permission is, first of all, you have to, because the house is not yours. And the second of all, you might, let's say your parents are away and they told you to never ever make food for yourself. Then you decide, finally, they're not here. Then you think you're smart enough and you climb up a chair, you try to take a plate and it falls out and it breaks. And after that, I'm telling you, you'll regret what you did. Then when your parents come back, you're going to be in big, big trouble. Thank you for listening and bye for now. I'll see you next time.
Hello, my name is Bana Ramadan. I'm 12 years old. I do ask permission before I do anything. For example, I first ask if I can play with my friends, or I ask if I can take sweets or chocolate. In my household, the consequences for not asking permission includes getting a punishment, or you're no longer allowed to do that thing. It's important for children to ask permission before doing anything because it might be something dangerous, and parents also need to know whether it's safe or not.
Hi. When I'm at home, I ask for permission before I do anything. Like if I want something to eat or if I want to play outside. I think that it is important to ask before you do anything because of if sometimes you make your own food, you could make a mess. Or if you play outside, you could get lost on the way home or you'd come late. If I don't ask to do some things at home, sometimes my parents would get a little bit angry and disappointed. So I think that it is important to ask your parents to do something before you do it.
Greetings to you all. My name is Lorraine Maya. I usually just do things without asking for permission, and that often leads me to my mother getting very upset with me. She always tells my brother and I to ask if we want something. No matter what it is, we must ask first. If my stationery gets finished, I must take the short pencil, empty pen, short coloring pencils, small eraser, and so on to my mom. Then she can give me permission to take new stationery from the bag where it is kept. I also ask for food. I don't just take any food I want at any time. I ask first. Sometimes it will be close to dinner time and my mom will refuse to give me a sandwich so that I don't spoil my appetite. I can always eat my sandwich after dinner if I am still hungry. It is important for children to ask before taking anything because it shows respect for the adults. Children need permission to go somewhere so that they can be safe. What if you just go somewhere and something bad happens to you? No one will know where you are and that you are in trouble. So asking is good as it keeps us safe and teaches us good manners.
I think it's good
to ask permission from your mom, dad, or guardian before you do something. Because what if you go play and you get hurt? What are you going to do? Because there's not going to be any adults to come call the ambulance, but it can't be that bad, or give you a bandage. So I think it's important to go ask somebody to go play. Not somebody younger than you, because they're obviously going to say yes, and then you get in trouble. So I think it's important to ask somebody older, like your mom and dad or a guardian, to go play or make food. Because you can go make food and then you cutting the slice of bread, for example, and the knife, and you cut yourself by mistake. So I think it's good to ask somebody for permission to do something. Thank you.
Hi, I do ask for permission when I leave home for my own safety. For instance, when I take my puppy for a walk or when my friends come and visit me. There can be serious consequences for not asking for permission. Imagine taking my dog for a walk and I'm alone. I could be putting myself in risk. It's very important for kids to ask permission from their parents before they go out. It also helps the parents to be at ease, knowing where their kids are.
Hello, my name is Pontamachete. Yes, I ask for permission before doing something at home. The consequences are that when doing something without permission, you might get injured in the process. I think it is important so that the parents can know if that thing is safe or the place is safe for the child to go.
Permission is defined as giving consent or authority or allowing someone to do something. It can also be defined as approval to do something given by a person with authority. Imagine how the world would be if children just did whatever they wanted without getting approval from their parents. Can you see how messed up and unruly the world would be? It is important to ask for permission because it shows respect and helps prevent you from becoming wise in your own eyes. When you don't ask for permission, you will never have boundaries, and you will assume that you have the freedom to do whatever you want anywhere. When you need to ask your parents' permission for something important, good communication techniques can help you approach the conversation in a positive way. Plan what you will say before you speak to your elders. You can even write down a list of convincing arguments for why you think they should give you their permission. And asking for permission doesn't guarantee you a yes, but your elders' answer is thought through very carefully. And even if you may not see it now, their answer is for your own good. Asking for permission is not a requirement at home only, but also at school.
This program was brought to you by SABC Education. Enriching minds, enriching lives.
Meet TJ, the magician. Well, he isn't quite the magician, but shame, let's call him that. The other day he tried to do that coin ear trick. Poor Owami is still in the hospital with a 5 rand coin stuck in his ear. He tried getting his pit bull, Mufasa, to levitate. Oh, he got that right. But now Mufasa is levitating through Tembisa, and somehow TJ forgot to read the section on how to get Mufasa back down. It's tough being a magician, but luckily for TJ, Britain's Got Talent Ultimate Magician will be the perfect inspiration for him to be the best magician in Tembisa. Catch Britain's Got Talent Ultimate Magician Saturdays at 7:30 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
SAFM supports a litter-free South Africa. Play your part in keeping our surroundings and environment clean. SAFM, leading the conversation. SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365, Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za. Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
Alrighty, so here's a conversation that's outside of charted territories, and we're talking to Anton Visser, who's the Chief Operations Officer of SA Business School. And we're wanting to know the different ways to maximize the skills development component of your triple BEE scorecard before the financial year end. And as the financial year end approaches, businesses need to act swiftly to maximize their skills development points on that triple BEE scoreboard. How are you doing this afternoon, Anton?
Good, and you, Bridget?
Good, thank you very much. I mean, when I say I can't make out chalk and cheese, what we're talking about, but this is why we have you here. Talk to us about, firstly, how we identify the skills gap within our workforce that need immediate attention for the upcoming year end. And then we'll get into the conversation of how that ties in to, businesses maximizing on this for their triple BEE scorecard.
Yeah, so I think, Bridget, very important is that throughout the HR teams or the skills development teams within their businesses, it is very important for businesses to identify where those gaps are and then plan accordingly, because it's so important that you want to have a return on investment with your employees and also upskill your employees. So it's important from a HR and a skills development department to make sure that you understand where the gaps are and then take it from there further, then to go and find the best possible programs to place your staff on either learnerships or on skills program to upskill them.
Yeah. So it says that there's at least 25 points that are up for grabs here. And the component obviously plays a crucial role in boosting a company's scorecard and overall compliance. Tell us, how does that work?
Yeah, so I think what is important is that the scorecard is broken up in a few components within the skills development line item. So it's very important that when you do your planning, yes, we're coming to a financial year end and there could be shortfall of spend. But what we always tell our clients is that you need to even plan now. When the year end is finishing now, 28th Feb, start your planning 1st of March for the following year so that you can get to that possible 25 points. And it's broken up into spend, training the unemployed youth, training the disabled youth, and then obviously the opportunity to gain bonus points for absorption of the unemployed learners on your team. So it is so important, if I can reiterate the point, is yes, there's now a year end coming up. There's a lot of planning needs to be done if you haven't done it. But the big thing is start your planning 1 March, if this is your financial year, and do all the planning so that you can immediately start and gain the maximum points over the next 12 months.
And whilst we're on that sort of planning phase for the following financial year, you also do say that it is quite challenging, right, for companies to comply with this, because on the one hand there's limited time, resources perhaps, and even expertise, but you also highlight that there are 3 effective strategies that can enhance your skills development efforts.
Yeah, so definitely the key thing is align with a BE consultant is very important so that they can guide you through all the steps. Secondly is choosing the right training provider that can guide you on where you can maximize your points and make sure that you maximize the spend and the tax incentive that is aligned with it. There's levies that you can claim back from your CETA. It opens the possibility for discretionary grants. And there's also then some tax incentive from SARS that you can claim back. So my suggestion is always align with a training provider
that can assist you. That's why they're there. They need to help you with all the focus areas that you need to get right, so that the planning is 100% correct, and focus on skills programs as well. It's not just only learnerships, but there is also skills programs that can give you the quick wins.
Would you say that a lot of organizations are or aren't taking full advantage of the skills development levies and possibly the possible tax incentives?
Yeah, no, I think there's still a lot of education that's needed around that point, just to make sure. So I think work closer with your CFOs in the business, and again, work closely with your BE consultants. There's a lot of things that they can do differently to make sure that you take advantage of all the incentives that's in place.
All right, and just by way of making sure, from the training provider officer programs, are these aligned with organizing framework for occupations and, of course, industry-specific needs?
Yeah, so I think it's very important that you always need to look at the industry framework that you play in, align with the skills gap as per the CETAs and the needs that is there, and then fit to those requirements. It's very important that we align the skills gaps per CETA that you're paying levies to at the moment.
Awesome. Anton Visser, thank you so much for the time. And Anton is the Chief Operations Officer of SA Business School. We're going to take a quick break, and then we come back and we're going to get into our final conversation. And this time around, we're looking at matrics. So, we've been having conversations that pertain to matriculants from various angles. And how do you go about choosing the right rewrite institution and avoid scams? That is coming up.
Over the last 50 years, one man has played an unparalleled part in transforming British society. This man is Rupert Murdoch. Feared by politicians, Murdoch has built the biggest media operation on the planet. His empire has given him extraordinary power and influence. The rise of the Murdoch family is an electrifying study of the Murdoch dynasty, charting the ups and downs of an empire. From the ambition that fueled its success, to the criminality that led to the closure of the News of the World and the Leveson Inquiry. This is The Rise of the Murdoch Family. Thursdays at 10 p.m. starts 13 February, only on S3.
Defending WAFCON champions are tackling Mehaladitwe in another glittering international friendly. Both nations describe their first match as the first half. Will Banyana Dr. Ellis dominate this 90 minutes, or will the beautiful flowers conquer the pitch battle? Witness the on-field grudge between Abu Makelwan, South Africa versus Lesotho on Tuesday, 25 February at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC 2. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game, the whispers in the morning, as I look in your
This February, the month of love and self-care, at SAFM we're celebrating with you, spreading love to all. Let's embrace kindness, connection, and self-care. And as always, SAFM will continue leading the conversations that move us through love, wellness, and everything in between. This month, let's love ourselves, love each other, and keep the conversation going. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
'Cause I'm your lady, and you are my man.
SAFM supports a litter-free South Africa. Play your part in keeping our surroundings and environment clean. SAFM, leading the conversation.
Here, there, and everywhere.
everywhere. SAFM 106.6 FM in Mangaung. Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
Our final conversation, we're catching up with the CEO of Star Schools, Vimala Aryan, and we're having a conversation around matric rewrite. So we know that as the March 2025 deadline for matric rewrite registration approaches, there's going to be a fair amount of students from the class of 24 that have a valuable second chance to improve their national senior certificate results. So this is a great opportunity, right? However, it can also lead to a lot of situations that could be avoided with potentially fly-by-night rewrite centers that are bound to prey on vulnerable students and their families. So we thought we'd get some advice from someone within the space of how to go about that. How are you doing, Vimala?
Hello, Bridget. How are you? I'm fine, thanks.
I'm great. Thank you very much. And let's maybe firstly just, talk about the options that are available for the class of 2024, for those matriculants that didn't quite walk away with their senior certificate, or perhaps folks that even walked away with a less than desirable sort of average and would like to look at rewriting. What are the options that are available?
So one of the options would be, if they wanted to go into a higher education institution, would be rewriting the matric. Secondly, there's also, which is very downplayed, is the possibility of doing a qualification, which is either a certificate or a diploma, which will also assist in getting that student into university. May take a little bit longer, but they would reach that goal eventually. I think our qualifications, our skills-based qualifications are underplayed. I think students who do not, make the marks to go into university should consider the skills or artisan options as well. We need more of them, and the current ones are doing very well as career. A plumber or an electrician, in some cases, does better than a doctor. So we must also consider looking at other kinds of skills that can help us become self-sustainable.
Absolutely. And that's a conversation we've had on the show about just sort of the different options that are available if one does not want to pursue rewriting or does not want to go down the academic road. But we know that there's a lot of families and former matriculants that want the rewrite option. They want to do the rewrite option, or they want to do the bridging certificate diploma option, and there's obviously a lot of institutions out there for folks to choose from, but not all of them above board. So what should folks be looking out for here?
So I think the first thing would be the registration with the Department of Education or registration with the Independent Examinations Board, the IEB. I think that would be the start. One may see a registration certificate, but the other thing that they need to do is make sure that it's valid, because the rewrite center has to renew their registration every year. So make sure there's a valid registration certificate. I think over and above that, look out for institutions that don't seem to have the infrastructure. You need to have, a campus, classrooms, experienced, expert educators. They need to have a track record. You can look for reviews, get, word of mouth, past students that have attended that institution. Do proper research before you, commit to any institution for that matter. Look at the success rate, and from that, gauge whether it is a viable option or should you be looking for someone, another institution?
Are these rewrite centers verified and accredited by the Department of Education?
Absolutely, they are. And in the case of Star Schools, we follow the approved CAPS curriculum. So they should be approved by the Department of Education because that's where we get our registration documents from. And the other thing is you've got to ensure there is actually a valid institution in place. Sometimes there's a whole lot of promises and there's a whole lot of flyers, handed out on the street and a lot of marketing done. But the reality is there may not be an organization doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure there is something valid out there.
Yeah. Tell me by way of, Vamala, tell me by way of just, how these rewrite centers work. Because a lot of us are unfamiliar with how it actually all unfolds. Are you in attendance of school? Because you spoke, for instance, about one of the checkpoints should be whether or not there is proper school infrastructure or classroom infrastructure, lecture infrastructure, and things like that. But when one registers for rewrite centers, the expectation that you are going to tuition and then ultimately building up to an exam, or you just go there when you're studying on your own and then you go there to write a paper?
Mm-hmm. So yes, very good question. You've got to make sure that there is a curriculum in place first and foremost, and then there is a schedule. When a student registers, they're given a schedule, and on that, remember, it's not like going to school in your matric year. It is now a rewrite exercise that you're doing, and the format of the actual year is very different from your matric year. So we do have students registering for specific subjects, and according to the schedule, they attend classes for those subjects per week. So they've got to be there 2 or 3 times a week.
Okay.
And the other thing is there's support services on site. So you should ask if there are people to assist you, tutorials, educators who can, guide you through certain processes, counselors. Those are the kinds of things you need to know that the center has that can support you holistically in this journey. You've got to be committed. That's important. And you've got to make sure that the organization as well is committed to ensure that you actually improve your results. And that's where all your check, your check items come into play. Make sure that all the things that a student will require is in place for that year to be a success.
I see. Because I've never actually, of course, I've never had the experience of rewriting. So I thought that obviously a few folks would not know how it works. And, simple information like that can make the difference between you falling for a scam and not, because you don't know what the expectation is.
Yes. Also make sure it's safe and conducive, to learning. Sometimes you may find there is a building, there is an institution, but there are other, safety issues of cleanliness, positive learning atmosphere may not be there. So it's advisable to visit the center and make sure it's a place you can actually commit. Because remember, you are rewriting. You are now going through another year of something you've already done. Motivation is important. So you make sure that the environment in which you do it motivates you to actually spend the year in that center.
Vamala Aryan, we appreciate the time with you. And Vamala is the CEO of Star Schools. So I hope you got your checklist there. If you are, rewriting or considering rewriting this year, some of the things that you should be looking out for when it comes to that rewrite center. And most crucial is knowing that they are registered and accredited by the Department of Education, and that certificate is renewed annually. So make sure that it is the most current certificate of verification. Look out for things like school infrastructure as well as support systems on that campus, and also seek out former students for word of mouth and see what they have to say about the institutions. Always good to also look at the statistics of an institution to see what is their pass rate with previous students who've gone through their doors. That is it from us. I don't know what's going on the television, but there's been an Umkhonto we briefing by respective members, and now the Secretary General, Floyd Shivambo, is on the podium, and no doubt Ashraf is going to touch on that and many other things that are going to be up for discussion today. From myself and my team, we thank you for choosing to be in conversation with us. We'll see you tomorrow. No, Wednesday. Inshallah, God willing, we do it again. Have a good one. Top stories: Zanzibar assault case postponed to next Monday, and China hails Russia's efforts to defuse Ukraine crisis. With the news, I'm Dino Motaung. Good afternoon. The court case against the 41-year-old Congolese national arrested in connection with the Zanzibar club assault in Pretoria has been postponed to next week Monday. The man was apprehended in Yeovil last week when Johannesburg Metro Police officers conducted patrols in the area. This after a video depicting young men in their 20s being sexually violated at the club went viral over recent weeks. NPA spokesperson Lumka Mahanjana says the suspect will remain in police custody until his next appearance at the Pretoria Magistrates Court.
This matter today was postponed to the 3rd of March for bail information. So basically what that means is that the state, we still need to do an identity parade of some of the victims that still need to identify the accused. And number 2, the state also needs to verify the documents that he handed in court to verify whether indeed he is legal in the country.
Health Minister Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi says the fee-for-service method of paying for health care must be eradicated.